What connects breakfast cereal to an FBI raid? A palace worth $150 million that nobody wanted, built during the Great Depression by a woman desperate to buy what money couldn't purchase, turned into a crime scene, or a political witch hunt depending on who you ask, by a president who made other people pay for his dream. This is the story of Mar-a-Lago, a mansion where champagne flowed while America starved, where invisible workers bled so visible guests could dance, where classified secrets sat in cardboard boxes next to wedding cakes. One woman built paradise to prove she mattered. One man turned it into a battlefield that split a nation in half. But here's what nobody tells you. The real threat to this golden palace isn't political. It isn't legal. It's rising inch by inch, wave by wave, patient and unstoppable. Before we reveal what that threat is, you need to understand how this fairy tale became a nightmare. And it starts with a woman who had everything except the one thing she wanted most. Picture this. You're worth billions in today's money. You own yachts, estates, art collections that fill museums, 4 husbands. And yet, the people you want to impress won't even look you in the eye. What would you do? Marjorie Merriweather Post knew exactly what she'd do. She'd build something so magnificent, so overwhelming, so impossible to ignore that they'd have no choice but to see her. But let's back up. 1887. Marjorie is born into comfort, but not nobility. Her father builds the Postum Cereal Company. You know it today as General Foods. Breakfast foods, cereal boxes across kitchen tables across America. Here's the problem. In the 1920s, that's not real money. Real money is railroads, banking, fortunes built slowly over generations by families whose names appear in history textbooks. Real money is Vanderbilt money, Astor money, the kind of wealth that doesn't smell like cornflakes and factory floors. When Marjorie's father dies in 1914, she's 27 years old and suddenly one of the wealthiest women in America. Tens of millions of dollars, the equivalent of several billion today. She can buy almost anything. Almost. The old families of Newport, the gatekeepers of American high society, they smile politely at her parties. They accept her invitations. They're far too civilized to slam doors in her face. But there's a wall, invisible, immovable, made of bloodlines and old names and quiet agreements about who truly belongs. Marjorie feels it every time she walks into a room. The slight hesitation, the careful distance, the conversations that stop just a fraction too quickly when she approaches. She collects Russian imperial treasures, French furniture, Renaissance paintings. She entertains lavishly. She's generous, cultured, educated. None of it matters, because in their eyes, cereal money isn't serious money. So, in 1924, Marjorie makes a decision. She'll build a palace. Not a Newport, where they've already claimed the best coastline, in Palm Beach, Florida, on a narrow strip of land that stretches from the Atlantic Ocean to Lake Worth, sea to lake, Mar-a-Lago. She hires the best architects. Her instructions are precise. Spanish Moorish palace, European grandeur, American scale. She wants imported tiles from Seville, bold leaf ceilings, a tower visible from the ocean. She wants something that makes their mansions look modest by comparison. Construction begins in 1925. For 4 years, Mar-a-Lago rises from the sand. 36,000 antique Spanish tiles bought from demolished buildings across Spain and shipped across the ocean. Stone from Mediterranean quarries. Carved wooden ceilings commissioned from Italian craftsmen. A dining room table so massive the floor beneath it needs reinforcement. The numbers are staggering. 62,500 square feet, 75 rooms, a golden ballroom that can hold hundreds, hand-painted tiles in every bathroom, silk wall coverings in the bedrooms, air conditioning in the 1920s in Florida, which almost nobody had. But here's what the architectural magazines don't tell you. While Marjorie's dream is taking shape above ground, something else is being built below it. An invisible city, and the people building it have a very different experience of this paradise. Mar-a-Lago requires an army to function. Industrial kitchens sprawl underground, connected by service corridors hidden from guest eyes. Massive refrigeration rooms, laundries handling endless mountains of linens, mechanical rooms housing boilers and pumps to keep the fantasy livable. The workforce peaks at more than 200 people during intense construction phases. Many are Black and Hispanic men working for wages that barely cover basic needs. The conditions are punishing. Florida heat and humidity make outdoor work exhausting. Sandstone dust hangs in the air. Workers fall from scaffolding, cuts from stone and glass, heat exhaustion. These men build something magnificent. Their names, with only a few exceptions, disappear from the record. The cost? $7 to $10 million. That's over $150 million in today's money. And that's just the building, not the furnishings, not the art, not the constant maintenance that will swallow millions more. The timing makes it even more striking. Mar-a-Lago is completed in 1929, the same year the stock market crashes, the same year the Great Depression begins. While Marjorie entertains in her ballroom, breadlines form in American cities. While her staff serves elaborate dinners on gold-trimmed china, families elsewhere struggle to afford basic meals. Marjorie, apparently, never sees this as a moral problem. She believes sincerely that her fortune creates jobs, that her spending keeps money moving, that her patronage serves a wider good. Whether the men cutting stone in the Florida sun agree with that view is something history doesn't record, because nobody asks them. The mansion opens in 1930. The parties become legendary. Hollywood, Washington, Wall Street, European nobility, everyone who's anyone. But the question that drove this entire project still hangs in the air. Has she finally built something grand enough to erase that invisible line? The answer will take decades to reveal itself, and it's far stranger than Marjorie could ever imagine, because eventually the US government itself will be forced to answer a question. What do you do with a palace nobody actually wants? Imagine working 12-hour shifts in 100-degree heat, surrounded by the roar of machinery, burning your hands on scalding pans, washing mountains of linens until your fingers bleed, all so people upstairs can sip champagne and feel like effortless elegance is just natural. Welcome to the machinery beneath the fantasy. The winter seasons at Mar-a-Lago follow a rhythm as precise as clockwork. Every November, Marjorie arrives from New York or Washington, but for weeks beforehand, the staff has been preparing. Every surface polished, every room aired and scrubbed, fresh flowers in the entrance hall, the kitchen stocked for months of entertaining. By the time Marjorie's car passes through the gates, the mansion seems to have been waiting, unchanged, perfect for her return. Then the season begins. The guest lists are crafted with surgical care. Diplomats and their wives, business titans, Hollywood actors whose names add glamour, and when she can get them, European aristocrats, counts and countesses whose titles are real, whose family trees stretch back centuries, and whose presence Marjorie values above almost any other. The dinners are productions, 30 or 40 guests seated in the formal dining room beneath carved ceilings, 7 courses, sometimes more, wine pairings from Marjorie's extensive cellars, crystal glasses catching candlelight, conversation moving carefully through safe topics, travel, art, society gossip, never anything too political, too controversial, too real. After dinner, guests drift to the ballroom, sometimes dancing, sometimes card games, always the feeling of being somewhere important, somewhere exclusive, a place that signals you matter. But while this choreographed perfection unfolds upstairs, what's happening in the rooms the guests never see? The kitchens below operate with near-military precision. Head chefs command teams of sous chefs and prep cooks. Dishes move from prep tables to stoves to serving trays in tightly timed sequences. One course finished, plates cleared, the next course already waiting. The heat is relentless, gas ranges blazing, ovens at full temperature, steam rising from pots, and the pressure never eases. Kitchen staff work 12-hour shifts during major events, sometimes longer. The pay is modest, the labor is heavy and often dangerous. Burns from hot pans and scalding water are routine. The schedule doesn't slow. Mistakes are noticed and not forgiven easily.
Beyond the kitchens, laundry rooms tackle mountains of linens.
Every tablecloth, every napkin, every sheet from every guest bedroom must be washed, pressed, and stored without a wrinkle. The work is hot, repetitive, endless. The women who handle it, almost all women, arrive before dawn and leave after dark in the busiest weeks. Outside, groundskeepers maintain the 17 acres in immaculate condition. Grass trimmed to exact heights, hedges shaped with geometric precision, palm trees checked for disease and storm damage. The salt air eats at metal and stone, demanding constant repair. Mechanical systems draw their own attention. Boilers heat water for dozens of bathrooms. Early air conditioning units fight a losing battle against Florida humidity and must be coaxed along. Electrical systems are monitored to ensure lights never fail during crucial moments. Men work in windowless rooms filled with the roar of machinery, watching gauges and adjusting valves to keep the illusion intact. Here's the thing that makes this system work. The staff live in a separate world, physically close but socially distant. And there are rules. The staff quarters form a closed world of their own. During the season, the estate employs between 50 and 60 people, all necessary to maintain the illusion of effortless elegance. They enter the main house only through designated doors. They use specific staircases. They learn to move through rooms as if invisible, always present, rarely acknowledged. Marjorie herself seems to treat her staff with what she believes is kindness. She remembers names. She asks about families. She gives Christmas bonuses and occasional gifts. By the standards of wealthy employers in the 1930s, she's considered fair, even generous. But fair and generous still means rigid hierarchy. It still means workers who can't dream of sending their children to the schools where Marjorie's grandchildren study. It still means a ballroom where staff can arrange flowers and polish floors, but never dance. The contrast is always there, even if few people name it aloud. Upstairs, guests in evening gowns comparing recent European travels, sipping champagne. Downstairs, workers in sweat-stained uniforms hauling cases of wine, scrubbing cooking grease from industrial ranges. The mansion functions because of this division. The fantasy depends on it. Guests come to Mar-a-Lago to escape the ordinary world, to step into a space where beauty feels effortless and abundance seems natural. That illusion requires invisible hands doing invisible work. On some evenings, after the last guests have gone to bed, after the final dishes are washed and the ballroom lights dimmed, Marjorie walks through the darkened rooms alone. The silence then is different, not the charged quiet before a party, but something heavier, emptier. The question she built Mar-a-Lago to answer still lingers. Was this enough? Had she finally proven whatever needed proving? The walls, magnificent as they were, offer no reply. But outside those walls, the world is changing. Europe is moving toward war, America will soon follow. And Mar-a-Lago, for all its stone and marble, is about to discover something Marjorie never planned for. Nothing built by human hands is actually permanent. The war years will expose the mansion's first cracks. But the real crisis, the moment when even the U.S. government says we don't want this, that's still decades away. And it will force a question nobody saw coming. What do you do with a dream that's too expensive for anyone to afford? 1973. Marjorie is 86 years old and dying. She's made a decision that she believes will finally give Mar-a-Lago the national importance she always imagined. She's giving it to the United States government. For free. A $150 million palace, fully furnished, ready to use. Sounds perfect, right? There's just one problem. Nobody wants it. Let's understand what Marjorie is offering. In her will, the terms are crystal clear. Upon her death, Mar-a-Lago will pass to the federal government to be used as a presidential retreat or housing for visiting foreign leaders. Everything stays with the house. The furnishings, the art, the carefully assembled collections. A complete world, fully staged, ready for use. She's not just offering a building, she's offering a vision. A winter White House where American leaders can host foreign dignitaries in surroundings that display the country's wealth and cultural sophistication. The idea isn't without precedent. Franklin Roosevelt had Warm Springs, Harry Truman escaped to Key West. So the concept of a formal winter White House in Florida seems both logical and generous. Marjorie dies on September 12, 1973. The lawyers begin executing the will. The government begins its review. The review does not unfold the way Marjorie would have hoped. The National Park Service sends representatives to inspect the property. Their report, when it arrives, is thorough and brutal. Yes, it's beautiful. Yes, it's historic. Yes, it's architecturally important. But it's spectacularly impractical as a government facility. The maintenance costs are staggering. Early estimates suggest the government would need to spend between $1 and $2 million every single year just to keep the place in basic operating condition. That's routine upkeep, utilities, staff salaries, security, insurance. It doesn't include major repairs or renovations that would inevitably be needed. Security is another massive problem. Mar-a-Lago sits on a narrow strip of land with ocean on one side and lake on the other. The property has multiple access points. The perimeter is long and hard to control. Making it secure enough for presidential use would require heavy modifications. Walls, gates, surveillance systems, guard posts. That would cost additional millions and fundamentally change the character of the estate.
The location itself poses risks. Palm Beach is effectively an island, tied to the mainland by a few easily blocked bridges. In an emergency, a hurricane, a security threat, a medical crisis, evacuating the president and staff would be complicated. The nearest major airport is miles away, the nearest significant military installation even farther. Then there are the neighbors, and oh, the neighbors are not happy. Palm Beach residents had tolerated Marjorie's parties because she was, in the end, one of them, wealthy, established, part of their social world. A permanent federal presence with checkpoints, security cordons, and constant activity, that's another matter entirely. The town council makes it clear, a major government facility would not be welcome. The Park Service concludes, regrettably but firmly, that accepting the gift would be financially reckless. Mar-a-Lago is too expensive, too impractical, too difficult to secure and maintain. Their recommendation? Decline. In 1981, after years of legal maneuvering and debate, the government formally returns Mar-a-Lago to Marjorie's estate. The dream of a winter White House ends before it can truly begin. Think about that for a moment. The United States government, with all its resources, all its budget, looks at this palace and says, "No thank you. We literally cannot afford this, even for free." The rejection must have stung, even after death. Marjorie had spent her life building something that would command respect, something no one could ignore or dismiss. In that sense, she succeeded. But she hadn't succeeded in making anyone actually want it. The problem Mar-a-Lago faced was the same problem that had shadowed Marjorie herself: excess. The house was simply too much, too large, too costly, too demanding, too tied to one woman's very specific idea of grandeur. What worked as a personal statement of wealth turned into a burden the moment someone else was asked to take responsibility for it. Through much of the early 1980s, the mansion sits mostly empty. A skeleton staff keeps the basic systems running. Wings of the house are closed off. Dust gathers on surfaces that once gleamed under candlelight. The gardens, without constant attention, slip toward wildness. Salt water keeps up its slow, patient work of corrosion. Mar-a-Lago is beautiful, vacant, and increasingly desperate for someone, anyone, willing to shoulder its extreme costs and complexity. The estate executives stare at an uncomfortable question. If the United States government doesn't want this property, who will? And the answer, improbably, is already circling. He's young, ambitious, obsessed with publicity, and convinced he can turn almost anything into a profitable brand. His name is Donald Trump. And he's about to do something Marjorie never could. He's going to make other people pay to maintain his dream. Before we reveal exactly how he pulls that off, and trust me, it's brilliant in the most cynical way possible, I need to ask you something. If you're finding this story as fascinating as I think you are, hit that subscribe button right now, because the next chapter of Mar-a-Lago's story gets even stranger. We're talking about turning a rejected palace into a private club, where paying members end up sitting next to a president discussing North Korean missile launches. You don't want to miss what comes next. 1985. Donald Trump is 39 years old, riding high on New York real estate deals and hungry for something that proves he's not just rich, he's important. Trump Tower opened 3 years ago. His name glows on buildings across Manhattan. But New York is crowded with other developers, other dynasties, other claims to greatness. Florida seems different, open, and there's this palace sitting empty that nobody wants. Trump's first move is characteristically aggressive. He offers $5 million for Mar-a-Lago, a fraction of what it costs to build, a number that reflects the property's core problem. As a practical investment, it's almost worthless. The estate executives, reportedly offended, turn him down. Trump's response? Pure genius, or pure ruthlessness depending on your perspective. He buys the beach parcel directly in front of Mar-a-Lago for $2 million. His declared plan? Put high-rise condominiums on that strip, blocking the mansion's ocean view and wiping out much of its remaining value. Whether he truly means to follow through or mainly wants leverage is still unclear, but the leverage works. Faced with the prospect of their oceanfront masterpiece becoming a landlocked relic behind concrete towers, the executives come back to the table. In 1985, Trump acquires Mar-a-Lago and its furnishings for roughly $8 million total. Still a steep discount compared to the original cost, but apparently the best realistic offer anyone's making. Now Trump faces the same problem that defeated the federal government. The property burns through money at an incredible rate. Maintenance costs stay in the hundreds of thousands every year. Property taxes are heavy. As a private residence, the mansion is absurdly oversized. But Trump has a particular talent. He doesn't see buildings, he sees brands. He doesn't see costs, he sees opportunities to make other people pay. His answer? Convert Mar-a-Lago into a private club. The transformation begins in 1995. Trump spends around $3 million on renovations, upgrading electrical systems, modernizing kitchens, refurbishing rooms that decayed through years of bare minimum upkeep. But the core of the house stays the same. The ballroom, the dining room, the gold leaf ceilings, the imported tiles. Trump understands that what he's selling isn't comfort or convenience. He's selling access to a very specific fantasy. And the price of admission? $100,000 initiation fee plus $14,000 annual dues. In return, members get access to the property, the right to dine in the mansion's restaurants, use of the pool and beach, and most importantly, the social capital that comes with being able to say they belong to Mar-a-Lago. Trump markets the club relentlessly. Interviews with architecture magazines, tours for society writers, carefully staged photo spreads showing him on site, hinting that members will enjoy proximity to celebrity and power. The message is sharp and consistent. Mar-a-Lago isn't just a club, it's an inner circle, and membership means you've arrived. Palm Beach society is not universally charmed. The town already has its pillars, the Bath and Tennis Club, the Everglades Club, with history stretching back decades and membership lists guarded like state secrets. Those clubs rejected Trump's own applications in the past, reportedly because of his flashy persona and his ties to casino gambling. Trump's countermove? Make Mar-a-Lago deliberately different. While the established clubs maintain policies that exclude Jews and African Americans, practices that are increasingly controversial but still present, Trump makes Mar-a-Lago explicitly open to members regardless of religion or race. Whether this springs from principle, strategy, or some mix of both remains debated. Whatever the motive, the strategy works. Within a few years, Mar-a-Lago has several hundred members. The initiation fees alone bring in tens of millions of dollars. The annual dues create a predictable revenue stream. Trump has solved Mar-a-Lago's fundamental problem. He's found a way to make other people pay to maintain Marjorie's dream. But the club is never just a business. From the start, Trump uses Mar-a-Lago as a stage for his own ambitions.
He hosts lavish parties engineered to generate headlines. He invites politicians, athletes, entertainers, anyone whose presence signals power or fame. He gives interviews from the property, always framed by opulent backgrounds that reinforce the image he wants to project. Mar-a-Lago is becoming what Marjorie perhaps always imagined, a place where important things happen, where important people gather, where decisions that matter are made. Then comes November 2016, and everything changes overnight. Donald Trump wins the presidency, defeating Hillary Clinton in a result that stuns pollsters and pundits worldwide. Mar-a-Lago's status shifts instantly.
The property that the federal government once rejected as too impractical, too expensive, too problematic for presidential use is about to become exactly that, not officially, but in practice. Trump makes his intentions clear immediately. He'll spend significant time at Mar-a-Lago during his presidency. He'll host foreign leaders there. He'll conduct government business from the property. The winter White House that Marjorie imagined in her will is finally being realized, though in a way she never could have pictured. The transformation brings complications almost at once. Security demands explode. The Secret Service descends on Palm Beach, turning what had been a luxurious resort into something closer to a fortified compound. Checkpoints appear on surrounding streets, Coast Guard boats patrol offshore waters. Airspace above the property becomes restricted. Agents screen everyone entering, including club members who paid hundreds of thousands for the illusion of effortless privileged access. The costs are staggering. But here's the twist that makes this whole thing even more remarkable. Unlike with Marjorie's original offer to the government, these costs aren't Trump's problem. Federal taxpayers are paying for securing the property, protecting the president, and managing the logistics of running parts of the U.S. government out of a private club. Estimates vary, but reporting suggests each presidential visit costs several $million in security and operational expenses. Palm Beach residents who tolerated the club with mixed feelings now face a reality far more disruptive. Roads close whenever the president is in residence. Traffic snarls around security checkpoints. The quiet, carefully curated exclusivity of the town is repeatedly shattered by motorcades, helicopters, and the constant noise of presidential machinery. Lawsuits follow. Neighbors go to court over noise, traffic, and falling property values. The town council holds contentious meetings about Trump's legal residency. Mar-a-Lago's deed reportedly includes a clause limiting it to club use rather than permanent residence, a restriction Trump is now clearly challenging. These fights play out in local hearings and national headlines, turning the property from a glamorous backdrop into an ongoing legal and political battlefield. But the most important change isn't logistical, it's symbolic. Mar-a-Lago becomes a shorthand for everything that divides America in the Trump era. For supporters, the mansion embodies success and achievement. Trump took a property no one else wanted and made it profitable. He became president while still owning a billion-dollar empire. The gold leaf ceilings and marble floors read as proof of American prosperity and confidence. For critics, Mar-a-Lago represents the worst possible merging of public office and private profit. Trump owns the club. He makes money from memberships and events. Foreign governments and corporate interests looking for favor can buy access simply by joining or hosting functions there.
The membership fee doubles to $200,000 after the election, a price that now buys not just social prestige, but potential proximity to the President of the United States. The ethical concerns are serious and largely unprecedented. Club members can overhear sensitive conversations. Foreign leaders stay in rooms that belong to Trump's business. Government matters are discussed at dinner tables surrounded by paying customers. The line between official duty and private business blurs, then largely disappears. And then comes February 2017, the moment that turns ethical concerns into national security nightmare. Trump hosts Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe at Mar-a-Lago. During dinner on the outdoor terrace, surrounded by club members, word arrives that North Korea has launched a ballistic missile. What happens next will shock you. But first, let me ask, are you still watching without subscribing? Because what comes after this, the classified documents, the FBI raid, the boxes in the ballroom, that's the climax of this entire story. Hit subscribe, drop a comment telling me what you think so far, because the darkest chapter is still ahead. February 2017. Outdoor terrace at Mar-a-Lago. Trump and Abe are having dinner. Club members are sitting nearby, taking photos on their phones. Then the news arrives. North Korea just launched a ballistic missile, and what happens next becomes the template for everything that's coming. Trump and Abe discuss the situation right there at the table while members watch. Documents are reportedly visible on the table. Security protocols that would be mandatory inside the White House seem absent or loosely enforced. The episode triggers outrage. Congressional Democrats demand investigations. Ethics experts call it a shocking breach of basic security practice. Even some Republicans express unease, though most say publicly supportive. Trump brushes off the criticism as partisan attack. Mar-a-Lago is secure, he insists. Members are vetted. Nothing improper took place. But that incident, that's just the preview. The real security crisis arrives 4 years later, and it arrives in cardboard boxes. January 2021, Donald Trump leaves the White House after losing the 2020 election to Joe Biden. He takes something with him, something no former president had ever taken on that scale: thousands of pages of government documents. Some are routine correspondence, some are administrative records, and some, according to later federal investigations, are classified materials ranging from confidential to top secret, documents touching on nuclear capabilities, defense plans, intelligence sources, and sensitive diplomatic communications. These papers travel from Washington to Mar-a-Lago in ordinary cardboard boxes. About 15 initially, though the exact number will later be disputed.
They're stored first in a basement storage room, then moved to other spots on the property, including, according to federal prosecutors, the ballroom where Marjorie's guests once danced beneath gold leaf ceilings. At first, almost no one outside Trump's orbit knows the documents are there. But by early 2022, the National Archives, the federal agency responsible for preserving presidential records, realizes significant material is missing. Officials request its return. Trump's representatives negotiate. Some documents are sent back in January 2022. But archive staff immediately notice classified markings on materials that should never have left secure government facilities. The Justice Department opens a criminal investigation. Subpoenas follow. Trump's attorneys search Mar-a-Lago and tell the government that all classified materials have now been returned. In June 2022, they provide a sworn certification saying exactly that. The certification is false. Federal investigators have evidence that classified documents are still at Mar-a-Lago. On August 8, 2022, FBI agents execute a search warrant at the property. The search itself is historic. No former president has ever faced such an action. Agents spend hours inside Mar-a-Lago, moving from room to room, photographing spaces, seizing materials. When they're done, they've recovered more than 100 additional classified documents, some marked at the highest levels of secrecy. Photographs later released in court filings show the scope of the problem. Files spread across the floor of what appears to be a storage area. Classification stamps clearly visible. Top secret SCI, sensitive compartmented information. Documents that, if exposed to foreign intelligence services, could allegedly compromise American operations and put lives at risk. All of this stored inside a building that hosts hundreds of club members, event staff, maintenance workers, guests. A building used for weddings and corporate parties. A building on an easily accessible barrier island connected to the mainland by public roads and a bridge. Trump's reaction is immediate and furious. He calls the search a raid, an assault, an abuse of power. He claims the FBI planted evidence. He insists the documents were declassified, even though no formal proof of declassification emerges. He argues that as president, he had absolute authority to take whatever he wanted. His supporters close ranks. To them, the search becomes proof of deep state conspiracy. Protesters gather outside Mar-a-Lago's gates. Conservative media attacks the FBI's motives and tactics. Republican politicians denounce the Justice Department and frame the investigation as purely political. Critics see something very different. A former president who removed classified materials, resisted returning them, allowed his lawyers to make false statements, and stored sensitive intelligence in a social club where day-to-day security was handled by private employees trained in hospitality, not counterintelligence.
Federal prosecutors convene a grand jury. In June 2023, Trump is indicted on 37 counts related to mishandling classified documents and obstructing justice. More charges are added later. The case is assigned to Judge Eileen Cannon in the Southern District of Florida. The trial is set, then pushed back. Legal motions pile up. Trump's legal team attacks the search warrant, the charges, the special counsel's authority, almost every structural piece of the prosecution. The case becomes one more battlefield in the larger political war around Trump, with each side completely convinced of its own righteousness and the other side's corruption. But beneath all the politics and spin, one simple physical fact remains. Classified documents were stored in a mansion built for parties. The ballroom at the center of the controversy has witnessed nearly a century of Mar-a-Lago's transformations. It hosted Marjorie's carefully staged dinners. It sought Trump's club galas. It welcomed diplomats during the presidency. Now, in legal filings and news reports, it's described as either a crime scene or the focus of a witch hunt, depending entirely on who's talking. The estate that was always about appearances, about projecting power and importance, now sits at the heart of questions about whether that power was abused and whether those appearances hid something genuinely dangerous. Mar-a-Lago has finally reached maximum visibility and significance. But here's what almost nobody is talking about while the legal battles rage and the political tribes clash. There's a threat to this mansion that doesn't care about Republican or Democrat, doesn't care about FBI raids or presidential tweets, doesn't care about classified documents or club memberships. It's been there since the day construction finished, patient, relentless, rising inch by inch, and eventually it will win. While America fights over what Mar-a-Lago symbolizes, the ocean has been quietly making its own plans. And the ocean doesn't negotiate. Let's zoom out for a moment. Mar-a-Lago stands on a barrier island, a narrow strip of sand between the Atlantic Ocean and Lake Worth. It's been there nearly a century, holding back water that would otherwise reclaim the land. The seawall, the one workers poured and stacked in the 1920s, repaired after storms, patched and reinforced again and again, has one basic purpose: keeping the ocean out. But the ocean is patient. It can wait. And right now, it's not waiting anymore. Climate change is accelerating erosion along Florida's coasts. Sea levels are rising in measurable, documented inches. Storms are growing stronger. Hurricane seasons are becoming more intense. Within decades, possibly within years, Mar-a-Lago could face a real existential threat. Not from politics, not from court cases, from physics. Water creeping higher, land sinking lower. The basic instability of building elaborate structures on narrow barrier islands in an unstable climate. That threat is democratic in a way human conflicts never are. The ocean doesn't care about property values, political slogans, historical significance, club memberships, presidential legacies. It will come for Mar-a-Lago the same way it comes for modest cottages and public beaches, testing every foundation, finding every weakness, claiming whatever can't be defended. At some point, the seawall will fail. Maybe it can be rebuilt, raised, armored with new engineering. Maybe technology will delay the outcome. Or maybe not. Maybe future generations will look at photographs of Mar-a-Lago the way we now look at images of vanished coastal towns, beautiful once, gone now, taken back by forces larger than any individual's wealth or will. If that loss comes, it will teach lessons the political scandals never could. It will show that grandeur is temporary, that power has limits, that nature operates on scales that make human drama look small. But that's the future. The present offers quieter lessons, lessons available to anyone willing to really look. The lesson of labor. Generations of workers whose skill and effort built and preserved a place they could never afford to inhabit as guests. Their work continues, right now,
While we argue about symbols, people are mopping floors, preparing meals, dusting light fixtures, trimming gardens. The dream survives because of them. Always has, always will. The lesson of complexity. Places hold multiple truths at once. A single building can be both beautiful and compromised, admirable and troubling. History is never simple enough to fit cleanly into one side's story. The lesson of attention. We choose what we notice. The classified documents saga triggered intense political warfare, but the decades of invisible labor that kept the mansion running barely registered. Legal fights over residency generated headlines, but the environmental fragility of lavish estates on barrier islands little sustained attention. Those patterns echo broader national habits. Drama travels fast. Spectacle draws cameras. Clashes between powerful figures feel urgent because power always does. The slow, structural questions, who does which work for how much, who carries which risks so others can enjoy which comforts, are quieter, harder to turn into outrage, easier to leave in the background. Mar-a-Lago has become a symbol, but symbols flatten and distort by design.
The mansion is not simply good or evil, not only a monument to success or just a temple of corruption. It's both and neither. A complicated place with a complicated past that refuses to shrink down to a single clean meaning. For some, it illustrates American exceptionalism at its most dazzling. A determined woman built something extraordinary. An entrepreneur rescued it from decay. A president used it to project American power. For others, the very same sequence tells a much darker tale. A wealthy heiress built a monument while the country starved. A businessman monetized access to power. A president merged personal profit and public duty so completely that distinguishing between them became impossible. Both narratives contain truth. Both leave out crucial pieces. The real story is messier than either political camp wants to acknowledge. The building has outlived its creator. It will almost certainly outlive its current owner. The unresolved question is what it becomes next. Whether that next chapter will be shaped deliberately or simply happen by inertia, determined by whoever has enough money and ego to claim it. Buildings don't choose their owners or their roles. People do. The decisions made about Mar-a-Lago, whether to preserve it, repurpose it, regulate it, condemn it, or simply let it continue its strange hybrid existence, will say a great deal about American values and priorities. The mirror stands there, set in stone and marble. So here's what I want from you. If this story made you think, if it challenged assumptions or revealed something you didn't know, subscribe to this channel right now. Because deep dives like this, stories that refuse to pick easy sides and actually examine what's beneath the headlines, that's what we do here. And drop a comment. I want to know, what's your answer? Is Mar-a-Lago a monument to the American dream or its corruption? Is it proof that private enterprise succeeds where government fails, or evidence that unchecked wealth corrodes institutions? Is it a palace built by ambition or on exploitation, a symbol of achievement or inequality? Or is the real answer something nobody wants to admit, that it's all of these things at once? And the fact that we can't agree on which truth matters most tells us everything we need to know about where America is right now. Because here's the question I'll leave you with, the one that keeps me up at night. When the ocean finally takes Mar-a-Lago back, when the waves wash over the ballroom where Marjorie danced and Trump dined and classified documents sat in cardboard boxes, what will we have learned? Will we look at the next Golden Palace and ask different questions? Or will we just build another one, tell the same stories, ignore the same workers, and wait for the next wave? The choice is yours. The ocean is patient, and the clock is ticking.